So I have two quotes for the top of this episode that will sort of summarize this book, The Great Gatsby, vibes-wise. The first: one autumn night 5 years before, they had been walking down the street when the leaves were falling, and they came to a place where there were no trees and the sidewalk was white with moonlight. They stopped here and turned towards each other. Now it was a cool night with that mysterious excitement in which comes at the two changes of the year. The quiet lights in the houses were humming out into the darkness, and there was a stir and bustle among the stars. Out of the corner of his eye, Gatsby saw that the blocks of the sidewalks really formed a ladder and mounted to a secret place above the trees. He could climb to it if he climbed alone, and once there he could suck on the pap of life, gulp down the incomparable milk of wonder. His heart beat faster as Daisy's white face came up to his own. He knew that when he kissed this girl and forever wed his unutterable visions to her perishable breath, his mind would never romp again like the mind of God. So he waited, listening for a moment longer to the tuning fork that had been struck upon a star. Then he kissed her. At his lips' touch, she blossomed for him like a flower, and the incarnation was complete. Through all he said, even through his appalling sentimentality, I was reminded of something, an elusive rhythm, a fragment of lost words that I'd heard somewhere a long time ago. For a moment, a phrase tried to take shape in my mouth, and my lips parted like a dumb man's, as though there was more struggling upon them than a wisp of startled air. But they made no sound, and what I had almost remembered was uncommunicable forever. Now, that's the first quote that summarizes part of the vibe of this book. Now, let me pull what the second one is. Gatsby, his hands still in his pockets, was reclining against the mantelpiece in a strange counterfeit of perfect ease, even of boredom. His head leaned back so far that it rested against the face of a defunct mantelpiece clock, and from this position his distraught eyes stared down at Daisy, who was sitting, frightened but graceful, on the edge of a stiff chair. "We've met before," muttered Gatsby. His eyes glanced momentarily at me, and his lips parted with an abortive attempt at a laugh. Luckily, the clock took this moment to tilt dangerously at the pressure of his head, whereupon he turned and caught it with trembling fingers and set it back in place. Then he sat down rigidly, his elbow on the arm of the sofa and his chin in his hand. "Sorry about the clock," he said. My own face had now assumed a deep tropical burn. I couldn't muster up a single commonplace out of 1,000 in my head. "It's an old clock," I told him idiotically. I think we all believed for a moment that it had smashed to pieces on the floor. I think the dichotomy between those two quotes, you kind of get the vibe of this book. It's either, grand sweeping moment or Gatsby trying to be cool and like knocking some shit over and then no one knowing what to say about it.
I think Gatsby's most Gatsby moment is when he walks around the house to come back to the door so he can ring the doorbell.
Certified Gatsby moment.
Everything I can get, oh I need, oh I need, oh I need, oh what does me? Oh what does me? Oh what does me? Oh what does me? Oh what does me?
Welcome back to Workers Lit, a podcast for workers and when they're getting lit. Now today
when they're getting great, when they're getting Gatsby.
When they're getting great, when they're getting Gatsby. When you're going full Gatsby, you can listen to our podcast. How you doing, Jacob?
I just dragged myself out of the pool. I'm fine. Unfortunately, Lenore is still floating in there. Yeah. There are beautiful artistic ribbons of blood coming out from her. It's a very nice scene. Unfortunately, I do think she's dead.
Lenore would look fire at a Gatsby party. I'm gonna call it right now.
I think that's a good idea, and I think we should get on that. Listener with a mansion, call us.
Yeah. So we have a guest today. We have the voice actor, Joshua Ilon, who is here to help us get great and Gatsby. Joshua, say hi.
I will be doing no such thing. I will be strongly discouraging this whole time people to not get great, and especially not Gatsby. If that's what great is, I have no interest in people being involved. But I am doing great. Oh shit.
Hell yeah!
Damn!
Let's fucking go!
Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself, as my dad says.
I've been there. I know. This is a cautionary tale.
Damn.
You could be living in a
there.
mansion down by the Long Island Sound. You don't want any of that. No, I'm doing okay.
Excellent. Well, Josh, before we get into this, I know some of the listeners of our pod listen to Penumbra. We've heard that because there were some people who were very excited when we had some guests from Penumbra previously. But could you tell us about what you're up to, what you're doing, who you are? We did not just find you on the street. You are a guy who does cool stuff. So tell us about it.
I have my moments. Hey, I'm Joshua Ilon. I live in Maine. That doesn't matter. The thing I've been doing right now, everyone should listen to Thirst. Thirst is an audio drama by the creators of both Juno Steel and the Second Citadel stories from the Penumbra Podcast. It's a little bit of a departure from our usual content. It's a little more adult. It's a little more horror, which is to say it is a horror show. But also, if you like reality TV, if you like mysteries, if you like, I don't know, the occult and gross stuff, it's the show for you. Trigger warnings at the beginning of each episode, which comes out every other Thursday. And if you subscribe to our special edition, then you can get episodes early and full scripts.
I believe Harley put it last time when on this very podcast that Thirst is basically kind of like a scream about a lot of things that are happening now and kind of processing them into this sort of horror form. And what better genre for like processing the present moment than horror?
That's what it's for. It's the best.
Exactly.
When I was reading the first few scripts that Kevin asked me to read, he was like, "What do you think?" And I was like, "Okay, this is going to sound like an insult, but it's a compliment. Kevin, this is the most heterosexual thing that you've ever written."
It's so good. It is. And that itself is such a departure. And I know a lot of Penumbra listeners who are used to it being the gayest, queerest, most subversive thing that they've heard. To go towards, this is very straight line Americana, but it's, Kevin is an amazing writer. Everyone should read everything that he has ever written. I have not read everything he's ever written. I'm sure the early stuff was fine, but he's very good at satire, and it is perfect satire of not just heterosexuality, but like the perfect American person.
Right.
Yeah.
We have so many versions of that thrown at you, and they are so well. They're satirized with care. I know we're not talking about Thirst; we're talking about The Great Gatsby, but it's.
But speaking of the greatest American person, like I feel like that. I feel when I was like, "Oh, we're gonna do Gatsby. Who am I gonna get on for Gatsby?" Obviously, it's gonna be Joshua, for like reasons, but also for like you said, like ultimate American people is I think a good way to describe Gatsby. I think that critics have said that, like, if you want to know what America is like, read The Great Gatsby.
Right, the perfect American, a guy who like lied about everything, completely abandoned his Midwestern roots to go to the East, has stepped on everybody, and then has spent his entire life obsessing over a single woman before his death related to a car accident. Really the most American thing you can do.
And a gun, too. And
a gun, of course. A
Cars,
gun and a
guns.
car accident. In a mansion that he very possibly like bought on credit and is maybe or maybe not can afford.
Right.
It really is all American. Before we continue, before Aisha gives us the background on the author, I just have to say a joke that no one understood in the Discord, but as this podcast and I think our generation's resident ambassador between Zoomers and Millennials, I have to say, kids these days are supposed to read The Great Gatsby, but they just care about where the Great Gatsby.
Wow.
I was like, I don't know what that means, and in this case, I'm too afraid to ask. I had to ask
it means butts.
I had to ask a kid what 6'7" meant, and I've never lived it down.
Yeah, we explained that on, I think, an episode of the podcast with Jen, and Jen was like, stop telling me what it means. I didn't ask.
That one's dead. That one's over.
Is 6'7" over?
6'7" is over because
absolutely not over.
Oh,
what do you mean?
People like us are talking about it. It's not in middle schools anymore. A friend of mine who is a full-time sub said that as of like the end of Christmas vacation, 6'7" is
Oh,
done.
substitute teacher. Okay. I was like, how do these things relate?
Well, the middle schoolers may not be saying it. My siblings in high school definitely still on the 6-7 train. To be fair, Christian high school, so they may be slightly.
They're a little behind.
A few weeks behind on the culture. Yeah, no doubt.
Sure. Honestly, that's faster than I would expect Christian high schools to be. They're usually like a decade back, so this is pretty cool.
Speaking of going back in culture, we're going back a century now to talk about F. Scott Fitzgerald. Right?
Do what to Scott Fitzgerald?
Well,
what does the F stand for anyway, Aisha?
Francis.
Of course it fucking does.
His name is literally, this is not a joke. His name is Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald. And yes, he is descended from the guy who wrote the national anthem.
This is the most American book of all time.
Yes.
Banger after banger.
Yeah, yes. So, okay. Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald. And I have in my notes that is actually his name.
I should have put that on the cover of the book.
I know.
I see why he went by F. Scott.
So he was born in 1896 in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is actually relevant right now. Most American place you could be right now. And he was born to an American father and an Irish immigrant mother. And he is another fucking Catholic.
Of course.
So when he was a kid, his family moved to New York, and he was apparently kind of a little asshole when he was growing up. Like, I saw multiple places that described him as quote-unquote snooty, because I think that his mother comes from money, so she raised him to be kind of a little prince. And so when he was a teenager, his dad lost his job from like drinking too much on the job. So the family had to start living off of his mom's inheritance. And they lived like in the nice part of town, but in like the cheapest house there. So it was kind of like the 5% wanting to be the 1% sort of thing. So he grew up, upper class, but not upper class. So basically like Nick. In
Highly
like Nick Carraway in The Great Gatsby. Eventually he ended up going to Princeton, where he fell in with a literary crowd, and he kind of had never really made many friends in school. He went to a Catholic school, but he went to Princeton and he started writing.
You're not supposed to make friends at Catholic school.
Yeah, that's absolutely not. And he started writing for the school newspaper and like the magazine, and for like little kind of little, what gets called like flapper stories, like kind of just like little things. And so crucially when he was like 18 or 19, he fell in love with a rich girl named Ginevra King. And he really wanted to marry her, but then he went to her family's estate, and her dad was basically like, you are too broke for my daughter. Like, poor boys should not expect to marry rich girls. And it basically
you gotta be a big money hustler to run.
Yeah. So it like broke him, and he dropped out of school and joined the army.
It's so sick that this is self-insert fan fiction. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he was literally like, I am going to go die in the trenches because I can't marry this rich girl. Like, literally, it was 1917, which is like...
Good year to die in the trenches.
Yeah.
Really peak year for that.
If you like dying in a trench, one of the best years.
Right, so before
really
he goes...
Really shitty aside from that.
Before he goes to die in the trenches, he's like, you know what? I need to leave something behind when I die in the trenches. So he wrote the first draft of This Side of Paradise in 3 months.
Oh, for real? Wait, 3 months?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some people are just really good at stuff.
Yeah. Well, he sent it off to a publisher, and the publisher was like, I think this is really interesting and original. You revise this and get back to me. And he was like, okay, I'll try not to die in the trench. And then the war ended before he was deployed. So he did not die in the trench. He was never deployed. But while he was in Montgomery, Alabama, he met a girl named, a rich socialite named Zelda Sayre, who started dating him.
Sayre, I can just imagine. Yeah. That's awesome.
Who's also, like, he was related to Francis Scott Key. She's related to Zelda.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
That one.
Yeah.
The hero.
Princess Zelda. Yeah, the hero with the sword, Zelda.
The little twink, yeah.
The main
Love that
character
guy.
of Zelda.
Zelda.
I pulled that on a cousin of mine not too long ago, that reference, and like a 10 or 11-year-old who had just played Breath of the Wild, and he was just like, no, and I felt so good. I was so happy.
Yeah, so Zelda starts dating him, like, kind of against her rich family's wishes because she's like, you know, YOLO, whatever. But she also refused to marry him because he was too broke. So he was like, okay, I gotta fucking, you know, I gotta make money so I can get some bitches because
Get
he
your
was
money up, big dog.
Yeah, literally. So, he finally finished the other, This Side of Paradise, and I keep wanting to call it The Other Side of Paradise because that's that song.
Yeah, Gangster's Paradise.
The Other Side of Paradise, isn't that like a
Paradise by the Dashboard Lights.
Yeah, I love that. I love Paradise Lost.
God damn it! In 1920, This Side of Paradise comes out. And it's like an instant success. It's basically an autobiographical story about being at Princeton. And all of his stuff basically is extremely autobiographical. And he's going to struggle against being like thought of as not a serious writer just because how obvious it is that he's just writing about himself and the people that he knows. So instant success. He and Zelda get married because he's suddenly loaded. And they basically move to New York City and start living the Gatsby lifestyle. They live in expensive hotels. They have expensive parties constantly, dancing on tables, dancing on top of taxi cabs. They apparently trash hotel rooms, get really drunk, beat each other up, yell at each other, break things. Like, they are a nightmare couple to have in your house. They get kicked out of like multiple hotels. And eventually they're like, okay, we need to calm down a little bit. We'll move to Europe and go be normal in Europe. So them and their like recently born daughter move, and they're doing all of this while they have a child also.
Awesome.
So they move to Europe, to France, where they kind of just continue as they were. Like, they cheat on each other. They constantly accuse each other of cheating on each other. And then like sometimes they actually do it, but I know that there has sort of been people are like, Zelda has never done anything wrong and Scott was an abuser, and I don't think that's true. Like, they definitely were fully doing stuff together. But
those people aren't listening to Bokoblins because the things Zelda has done to Bokoblins, to Moblins, to that community, can't say not an abuser.
Yeah, no, there's the whole monarchical structure of Hyrule does need to be called into question.
That's really true. That's so
I mean,
true.
they keep collapsing. Come on, you know, at a certain point, you got to blame.
I'm not an apologist for Ganondorf. I am not an apologist for Ganondorf, but this is a system that can create someone like Ganondorf, and we need to acknowledge that.
That empowers the Ganons in our society. Mm-hmm. I will say that, like, I feel like cheating on each other and accusing each other of cheating and getting drunk is probably like par for the course for couples in like Paris in the 1920s.
Yeah.
At least that's in my head. Maybe that's not fair. Parisians from the 1920s, sound off in the comments.
So his next book, The Beautiful and the Damned, Zelda reportedly worked on it with him, and there is a number of passages that she wrote. And as a result of this, there has been a lot of speculation that it's possible that she actually wrote a lot of his output, or that like she was writing and he was stealing her writing. And of course, like, I've done a few hours of research, so I don't really know, but kind of from what I was reading, it sounds kind of like what would happen is that people would accuse him of being a girly writer and then say that his wife must have written his books.
Interesting.
This always bothers me because there are a lot of, I have always, since high school when I was made to first read Great Gatsby, there have always been people who are like, Zelda wrote that and he took all the credit. Like, Zelda Fitzgerald was a very accomplished artist and novelist.
Yeah.
Like, has her own backlog of really beautiful and phenomenal work.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to say, like, no, the thing the man made, she actually wrote. No, pay attention to what she actually did, because she did so much and did help. Anyway,
I also think that the stuff that he wrote about is kind of feminine in a way. like, he didn't write about war. He didn't write about, like, he wrote about love, and he wrote about going to parties. And I think as, like, a result, he might have, like, I think F. Scott Fitzgerald was a victim of sexism. People were doing misogyny to him.
He was raised a fancy lad, right? Like, he has those inclinations, and he did go to war, but he didn't actually spend any time in the trench. And the reason he went to war was over a romantic entanglement gone poorly. So, you know, in the sort of typical, especially back then, masculine, feminine binary, that would be seen as a very sort of feminine engagement.
But this is also a time that masculinity itself was changing.
Sure.
And it was on such a certain directive, like, especially post-war, when you had this, like, lost generation. I have a whole spiel about this that we will definitely get into, but, like, there are so many parallels between the lost generation and millennials, and this book is so relevant for the things that are happening right now in a way that it hasn't been in such a long time, that this conversation about what it is to be masculine and how to feel like a man when all of the prescriptions of what a man was supposed to be do not feel relevant anymore, because now we are in an era of plenty and we are moving off of farms. All of this is crushed by the Great Depression. This totally resets the clock. But for that 10 years, there was this whole thing about, like, no, men are, like, Ernest Hemingway was the manly man, and he was writing crying books about how bad war is. Like, he was a bad dude, but also an amazing writer, and, like, the most macho man was like, it sucks to kill things. Too bad I have to kill things. Like,
literally, my next sentence in this bio is, in Europe, he met Ernest Hemingway, and also James Joyce and Gertrude Stein and that whole group. And what Fitzgerald said about Hemingway was, I talk with the authority of failure, Ernest with the authority of success.
Bro's saying anything.
So, when Gatsby came out, it was liked by critics, but it did not sell anywhere near as well as his first two books. And I think it was because it was too good. So people, like, wanted stuff that, like, is a little, like, This Side of Paradise is also good, but it's not anywhere near as complex as Gatsby. And it's not, like, staring into the void like Gatsby is. Hemingway didn't like Zelda. He thought that she was really nasty to Fitzgerald. According to him, she was always calling him short and small-dicked. She would get drunk and talk about how tiny his penis is and in public.
Typically not good behavior unless you're into that, in which case make sure the people around you are also
so
consenting.
they both had a habit of, like, taking their clothes off in public. She would just like start stripping at parties for fun. It sounds like fun if everybody is into it.
Right.
So one time they were at a restaurant, and Isadora Duncan started hitting on F. Scott Fitzgerald, and Zelda was so mad that she threw herself down the stairs. And this is kind of like
that would happen in this book.
Yeah,
Icon.
This is the level that they're at. So,
insert a sound of Link from Breath of the Wild getting hit.
So, and it's around this time that she starts showing very obvious signs of schizophrenia.
Oh shit! That's
and
funny.
She, at one point, it gets to the point where she just, once they're driving on, like, a road on the side of a cliff, and she grabs the wheel and, like, tries to drive them off, yelling something like, God wills it, or something like that, with their daughter in the car. So, like, at this point, she is committed, and she will spend the rest of her life in and out of mental institutions, struggling with schizophrenia, and basically she will get better and then start drinking again and get worse again throughout her history. And as time goes on, Scott's drinking gets worse and worse. His writing really starts being affected by this, and he's like a full-blown alcoholic. Zelda does have one of her own books come out, but she's very fucked by her publisher. Like, they didn't even give her a copy editor. So, like, the book doesn't do very well. And I think it's in recent times, it's been, I think, re-edited and re-released. And I think that her stuff has been, posthumously been appreciated a lot more than it was at the time. So Fitzgerald attempted suicide several times. This little anecdote, in Cuba, he got beaten up when he tried to save some chickens from a cockfight. When he was drunk, he was like, don't hurt these chickens, and tried to save them. And then he died of a heart attack at 44 from drinking. Yeah. And his wife did not come to his funeral. And she died 7 years later in a fire at a hospital. And they both died thinking that they were failures. And it was only until after his death that one of his friends started getting people to reappraise his work. And now The Great Gatsby is one of the best-selling books of all time. And people say, if you want to know what America is like, read this book. And yeah, I think it's really sad that he never got to know how people were going to look at this book, because he always thought of himself as like, he knew great writers, but he wasn't a great writer. He was just, a commercial writer. He considered himself a failure, even though he published 160 short stories.
He was a hell of a writer, I'll say that.
He published The Great Gatsby when he was 29.
Yeah.
Ugh.
My God.
Which is crazy.
It's not to repeat myself, but it's so frustrating when people are just it seems like naturally good at stuff. Because that like that little quote, he knew when he kissed the girl, forever wed his visions of her, his mind would never romp again like the mind of God. That is such a great vocalization of a feeling that everyone has felt right before they do a thing that they have been thinking about their whole life. How does a 28-year-old write that? How have you put that to words? He was smart, and that's pretty cool. If nothing else, maybe not a good dude, but he was really smart and really good at this.
A lot of interesting rhymes with T.S. Eliot we covered last week. Similar period, knew similar people. Partner that ended up in a mental institution. There's the alcohol abuse. Some interesting rhymes there for people from writing in a similar era in the 1920s. Last thing I'll add, just to bring a little bit of levity to this, is when I was taught The Great Gatsby in school in 10th grade on the PowerPoint, I was at a Christian school, and so there was a lot of restrictions on what they could do. So when it had the list of his books, The Beautiful and the Damned said the beautiful and the D word. And we thought for like 2 days that it was the beautiful and the dick.
Incredible.
Hell yes.
But
Did we all read this book in high school?
I read the Spark Notes of it in high school.
Yeah.
When did you first read it?
Me? In high school.
Josh, what about you?
I first actually read The Great Gatsby when I was maybe 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you feel about it then versus like now? How's your kind of relationship to it evolved?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. In high school, any book that was given to me, except for The Grapes of Wrath, I took and I threw on the ground and I read a summary of it, and that was it. So I didn't think about it at all. Eventually figured maybe I should actually know the things that I know stuff about. So I tried to go back and read a bunch of those. Wound up reading The Great Gatsby again. My takeaway at 21 was, that's not my business. Like, that sucks for all of you guys, but like, whatever, that's not for me. I've read it several times since, and twice in the last couple of years, once just getting ready for this. It's crazy take here. It's really good.
Yeah.
It really nails a certain fold of the population that I think the first few times I read it were not very easy to see, but right now in 2026, in Trump 2, in all of the worlds that we live in, especially in the United States right now, they are everywhere.
Yeah.
This is a book about right now, which is crazy because, like, Tom Buchanan listens to Rogan, man. Like, these are, Gatsby is looks maxing, and Daisy's like Brat Summer, totally like just trying not to, this is about zillennials and zoomers, and a very specific desire to ascend that we are seeing very publicly right now. Even at the parties when everyone knows who Gatsby is, but no one's ever met Gatsby. Yeah, dude's fucking posting. The parties and everything, he is tweeting, and he is like, no one knows who he actually is, but they know the things that he puts forward about himself. So that when you actually meet the guy, for a second you're like, holy shit, it's Drill. But then you're like, whoa, that's like, he's kind of a normal guy after a while. I love this book now that it is once again the worst possible time to be alive.
Well, I think too, I mean, it's like there's no such thing as like metaphor anymore, right? The Trump on New Year's had a Gatsby themed party, had like a 1920s Gilded Age themed New Year's party. And I mean, being in the 20s again, right? Being just over a century since this was written, what were we in then? We were in the 20s, this what we call the Gilded Age now, a time of rapid income inequality that was ever widening, a time when technology was expanding, right? So the capacity of the individual was going up a lot in their ability to engage with the world, but their share of that world was shrinking. And we were headed for a cliff that like everyone with a brain predicted, but not the people in power, because the people in power weren't thinking about it because they were thinking about the shit they were thinking about in this book. And like we identified earlier, the Great Depression hit, and it was this sort of obliteration of that. I mean, of course, the ruling class, the rich stayed in their place. Most of them did. Though a lot of the Knicks of the world ended up like, jumping out of buildings. But the Gatsbys of the world stayed solid. And it feels like that, history doesn't have to perfectly rhyme, but would not be shocked to see a 2029 Great Depression, given the way things are going. So there is an interesting rhyme there too. It's both culturally and economically, which, as we know, are super intertwined.
Also, if I had a dollar for every time we read a book about a sad bisexual trying to hang out with his rich friends, I would only have $2, but it's still weird that it happened twice.
Look, sad bisexuals like to write.
Yeah.
With a member of the Penumbra podcast.
Yeah, because Nick wow. has a lot of, I think, and I'm sure this is intentional on Donna Tartt's part, but like the main character of The Secret History, I think, has a lot in common with Nick.
No doubt.
He's also sort of 5% envying the 1%. Having sort of weird homoerotic experiences with all his male friends. But
and he is the speaker character in this. It is a first person perspective. And from the very beginning, I like one of the first things he says is, I'm normal and everyone around, every like weird person follows me around. Like he says, the abnormal mind is quick to detect and attach itself to this quality when it appears in a normal person, talking about just being like a normal guy. And so I do love a book that starts with a guy being like, listen, I'm the coolest, most normal, most chill guy. It's just that everyone in my vicinity is a freak. And then, of course, he's also a freak, which is lovely. And F. Scott Fitzgerald understands that. And I find that to be like, from the very beginning, if you're paying attention, you're like, okay, this is going to be funny as hell too. You're like, oh, a guy that introduces himself as normal, Yeah.
I'm Mr. Normalman, actually. Yeah.
It just so happens all my friends are the worst people ever.
Yeah. So I'm sure most people have read this book, but just in case you haven't, to frame it up, this is a book about like a guy, upper middle class, moves to New York to be a bond trader, I guess, lives on a little place, a made up, I think, part of Long Island called West Egg, and lives next to this like giant tacky mansion where this rich guy is constantly having big lavish parties, and he gets kind of I think that the best way to describe this book is this is a very lonely book. This is a book about sort of like looking at people doing things and wishing that you could also be doing them, but also kind of not wanting to be doing them. Like, there's so much like longing and like imagery of like And like it's like, Joshua, now that you said that, like, their posters, their influencers, like their looks maxing, like it's like it's looking at somebody having a perfect life and wishing that you could have that too, but also feeling disconnected from it.
Nick says in the first chapter, describing how he lives, my own house was an eyesore, but it was a small eyesore, and it had been overlooked. So I had a view of the water, a partial view of my neighbor's lawn, and the consoling proximity of millionaires, all for $80 a month.
Yeah.
Right? It is this experience of once again, he's around the millionaires, which he feels more comfortable with despite his jealousy for them. He is uncomfortable with the place he lives in, but he consoles himself by saying, I'm a small guy, that I'm going to like look at this really cool guy who stares out across the water. And it turns out the really cool guy is, history's greatest simp, and not in a cool way.
And I just want to like read a little bit of, like, because this book, like, you can describe the plot of this book, and not much happens in this book till the very end, where everything happens all at once. But like, the experience of reading this book is like very singular. So in this part, Nick has gone to visit his cousin, like second cousin, maybe, Daisy Buchanan, and her husband in the nicer part of the town.
They're the super rich people that he's related to.
We walked through a high hallway into a bright rosy-colored space, fragilely bound into the house by French windows at either end. The windows were ajar and gleaming white against the fresh grass outside that seemed to grow a little way into the house. A breeze blew through the room, blew curtains in at one end and out the other like pale flags, twisting them up toward the frosting wedding cake of a ceiling, and then rippled over the wine-colored rug, making a shadow on it as a wind does on the sea. The only completely stationary object in the room was an enormous couch on which two young women were buoyed up as though upon an anchored balloon. They were both in white, and their dresses were rippling and fluttering as if they had just been blown back in after a short flight around the house. I must have stood for a few moments listening to the whip and snap of the curtains and the groan of a picture on the wall. Then there was a boom as Tom Buchanan shut the rear windows, and the caught wind died out about the room, and the curtains and the rugs and the two young women ballooned slowly to the floor. And that is just like such an incredible image. Like, I don't know, man. How does he do it?
He's a painter. He's so good at showing us not just what we see, but how he feels when we see what we see. It's beautiful. He's good at this.
Yeah. And this beautiful, beautiful image. And then Nick proceeds to have dinner with like the worst people alive.
Tom and Daisy, his like distant relatives. Tom spends the whole dinner, despite having not a care in the world, being, physically attractive, strong, he has money, doesn't seem like he has to work very hard. He's like, the white race is going to go extinct.
Yeah, he talks about great replacement.
Yeah, he talks about the great replacement theory and natalism.
Because this book is about right now.
Time is a flat circle.
Yeah, he says, quote, civilization's going to pieces. I've gotten to be the most terrible pessimist about things. Have you read The Rise of the Colored Empires by this man Goddard? Well, it's a fine book and everybody ought to read it. The idea is if we don't look out for the white race, we will be utterly submerged. It's all scientific stuff. It's been proved. And I'm like, oh my God, like he's doing natalism and great replacement theory. Yeah. Like, and it's as absurd now as it was then, but it's the same guys. Like these, God, yeah.
Yeah, and we meet Jordan, who is a professional golfer, a girl that Nick meets, and she's kind of important in the book. Like, she's also like the only person that he knows who seems normal. Like Jordan seems nice.
Yeah, Jordan Baker is a lady who, she plays golf. She lies a lot. That's the thing in there.
She does lie a lot, but that's fine. These people deserve it.
We support women lying on this podcast.
Yeah.
And she lies in like seemingly inconsequential ways. Like except when she moves a golf ball during a tournament and then like threatens people.
I support her. I think Fitz cool she did that.
Fitzgerald's like weird. It is so often her skin is described very strangely in this. If it wasn't written at the time period that I know they would call someone out like for what race they are, I would think she's not white. Like if it was written today, because they describe her skin as golden and as brown numerous times. I think but given when it was written, she's definitely just tan. But that's always weird when I just like when they describe a character as dark or golden or brown, I'm like, but they're supposed to be white. That always throws me off about old books.
Yeah.
And then there's Daisy, who is this lady who says directly, she hopes her daughter will be a fool because it's the best thing a girl can be in the world, a beautiful little fool.
I love
and
that
she
so
lives her
much.
life like that.
That's what I say about my dog.
I do love your dog.
But also, like, that's also such a, like, what a grab of the zeitgeist. What a perfect, like, condensation of the thing that was going on right now. The worst thing you can possibly do if you're a woman is think too much about the position you're in, because you will not be happy. So just be pretty and don't think about it. Ugh.
Yeah. I do also like Daisy is kind of a despicable person, but I really like Daisy. Like you can feel how Daisy got the way that she is. Like,
well, we get her backstory from Jordan, and she was basically raised as this perfect Southern debutante, right? She was raised in Louisville, I believe.
Yeah.
And she was raised to be perfect. She was raised to not drink. She was raised to entertain tons of men, but never have any relationship to any of them, to be a social climber in an already high social position. The other women were supposed to envy her. And that's a thing that like breaks a person, especially when she finally found someone she loved, she was obsessed with, who was Gatsby back when he was broke, in sort of a repeat of the situation Fitzgerald had in his youth. And she wasn't able to be with him. And when she got married to Tom, the day before she got married, got drunk. We're led to believe the only time in her life she ever consumed alcohol was getting passed out drunk, ahead of a wedding, right after being given a $350,000 string of pearls, which would be the equivalent of almost $7 million today.
yeah.
So like, no wonder this lady's a freak.
Yeah. She reminds me so much of relatives of mine in the Middle East. Because I have some very rich relatives who don't want anything to do with us because we're Americans, and I don't blame them. But there's a lot of women in my family who are such horrible bitches. And you know it is because they have nothing to do except sit around and ruin each other's lives. And I'm like, if you only had something to do besides be a bitch, you would be so great. But you don't, because you're like a rich girl in this society. So you don't do anything. And it's like so frustrating.
Well, the plot moves into he is going to meet Gatsby. He finally is going to end up at one of Gatsby's lavish parties that he throws every Saturday night. And these are real ragers. I will say Gatsby's parties seem pretty fun.
Oh, yeah.
There's just everything's going on.
I don't think I'd want to live next to them, but...
Oh, no. Well, for $80 a month, I would in
Maybe,
today's money, not in 1920s money. Yeah, that's a lot then.
Yeah, that's like
now.
$4,000. Yeah.
Too much money. But the Gatsby parties are real ragers. Like we said earlier, Gatsby, his engagement with them is fairly limited. I mean, none of these people are coming to his funeral. Spoiler alert. But like Nick is able to eventually meet Gatsby, the guy himself. And at first, Gatsby is like we said, he is as impressive as you imagine at first. He's a guy who makes you feel seen and heard. He has that quality of a person that makes you feel like the most important person in the room, that's engaging. But the facade breaks fairly quickly. And I think there is this cultural idea of Gatsby as this super charming figure that is just, he's suave, he's cool, he's whatever. And the fact of the matter is he has just the most surface level, the most microscopic surface level suave attitude that breaks at the sign of anything. He tries to be cool. He tries to have a moment that he's waited for 5 years to see a lady, and he knocks a clock off in the process of doing it, like I read at the top. That's the guy this is.
Yeah, so basically Gatsby has moved here literally to chase Daisy because she couldn't marry him because he was poor, and he has spent the last 5 years becoming rich, and we're not really sure how, probably through bootlegging. Because it's prohibition, even though everyone is drinking constantly. It is prohibition. But, you know, you could get alcohol in prohibition very easily. And yeah, he's basically just created this lavish, nouveau riche lifestyle in order to tempt Daisy away from Tom. And he has just like fixed this perfect idea of this woman in his mind and just like gone for it. And it's been the whole reason that he's been alive for the last 5 years. And there's that famous image of him looking at the green light on the end of her dock and like holding his arms out to it to symbolize like the longing. And that always gets brought up, I feel like, as like a stupid metaphor that you're supposed to talk about in school. And I'm like, but guys, the book just explains it to you.
Right. It's
the
baby's
book
first
tells
symbol
you
for
what
sure.
it means.
Well,
you know,
do we
it's
have
not a
any-
hard one.
Why do we think that? Because I feel like everybody who learned Gatsby in school talked about the green light. Why do we think the green light gets brought so much in these academic settings? Is it just low hanging fruit?
I think it's a really good example of a type of imagery that that isn't always so on the nose. It's just like and it's another point of Scott being very good at condensing something into one little image and moment. Here is a thing that I want so much. It is just out of reach. I will constantly reach for it. I'll never be able to grab it. It's silly and it's over the top, but in the context of everything we've seen,
Yeah. I
doesn't
think
feel
that
bizarre.
part of it is that it's on the cover. And that's a very famous and iconic cover. It has like the glasses of
eyes.
PJ
Dr. Eckelberg.
Dr. Yeah,
the eyes
Yeah.
of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg.
the eyes and then the glowing light. And I think that's a really iconic it's a beautiful cover. Like I don't know when that cover was created, but it's beautiful. I'm sure everybody like can conjure that cover up in their head, even if you hadn't read the book.
I think too, the light metaphor is interesting because it breaks the metaphor intentionally later on. It says once he saw Daisy again in person, that light was meaningless to him.
Right.
Because that light was something in proximity to her, and now it no longer is. And so it is no longer interesting to him.
Right.
So it is also like a metaphor that resolves itself in a way that I think works very well. So it's a cool thing. I remember finding it to be very neat when I learned about it in high school, and it is a solid like baby's first like symbolism.
So we basically like find out that Gatsby has befriended Nick because he knows that he's related to Daisy and is trying to get him to bring Daisy over so he can also come over. And I think also like there's this parallel group of people that we meet. We find out that Tom is cheating on Daisy like very obviously and just like right under her nose. He's like fucking some like mechanic's wife.
Yeah.
And there's like a scene where Nick hangs out with them. Like Tom, his mistress, these other people, in the same apartment building that his mistress is living. His mistress's sister. It's such a weird scene. Like, it's like more of the worst people you've ever met. And it's so interesting how like, it's interesting to see this woman who, when you meet her, she seems nice. And then, like, you see her transform to, like, a monster, like, right in front of your eyes as she gets, as, like, more wealth sort of, like, embellishes it, like, just, like, gets draped over her. And you see, like, how monstrous she becomes in just, like, an afternoon, which I think was really interesting.
Yeah. Gatsby ends up getting to reunite with Daisy. In Nick's house. I read a quote from it at the top after he knocks over the clock and he has this awkward moment where they're like back and forth, but eventually they do reconnect. And they have this long period where they're walking around Gatsby's house and he's showing it off. And Gatsby's literally like, if if she's looking at a piece of furniture and smiles at it, he's like, this is my favorite furniture. And if she doesn't, he's like, it's the worst furniture.
I love when he's like pulling out all of his shirts for them to look at and like throwing them on the bed. And then she just starts crying and going, these are the most beautiful shirts I've ever seen.
And we have a part here that is stuck in my head since I was 14 years old that I'm going to read. Like,
I also have a bit of Gatsby that's been stuck in my head since I was that young, but mine's later.
I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah.
Mine is, so they're chilling there and Daisy says, come here quick. And they look at the sky and it says, the rain was still falling, but the darkness had parted in the west. And there was a pink and golden billow of foamy clouds above the sea. Look at that, she whispered. And then after a moment, I'd like to just get one of those pink clouds and put you in it and push you around. I tried to go then, but they wouldn't hear of it.
Yeah, no. They're like, you're not escaping this polycule, buddy. There's one little thing that happens that I just want to bring up and see what your guys' take on it was. And it's when he's getting drunk with the other people and he goes home with that guy who is like naked and showing him pictures. Like, what do you guys make of that? Did he fuck that guy?
Sometimes you just go home with some guy and he gets naked and shows you pictures, man. Don't ask questions.
I was like, I forgot. I like totally forgot. It startled me. I was like, oh yeah. Like Nick's weird, like gay photography experience. I don't know.
I think to like authentically answer that question, like, did he fuck that guy? Probably not. Like, did they actually like get into? But then we have to be like, what is sex and what is going on there?
Exactly.
And, like, that is an erotic experience that they shared that we learned about. But like, you know, what was queerness in 1925? I wasn't there, and most of the literature about it doesn't really exist. So like, that was probably one of the things it looked like.
I mean, there was a lot of queerness going on in the 20s, and it's like one of the things that gets brought up by modern fascists as for like why we needed to do fascism, because there was too much gay shit going on. And we talked about it with Woods All Black. Yeah.
I think too, I mean, with that's also just one of those things where I'm like, I basically jotted it down as like one of Nick's side quests that he just kind of goes on sometimes. Like he'll just occasionally be like walking down the street and see a group of people about to eat. And he's like, those people look lonely. And then just keeps
just like me.
Yeah. He just has little side quests. He'll see the eyes of Dr. Eckelberg looking over everything, which we'll talk about at the end. Just little moments. And that's a little moment where it's like, what's up, Nick? And the answer is, who knows?
We just don't know.
It's just a kid having fun in the city.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention during the bio is that, like, while they were in Europe and Scott was busy writing The Great Gatsby, Zelda was busy doing lesbianism.
Well, I guessed from the name. It's a fairly gay name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's got one of those weird letters.
No doubt.
Yeah, one of those Z's. Those are homosexual letters.
Yeah.
What are you as a woman doing with a Z in your name?
Come on.
Literally. If
sex.
not eating pussy.
So this book is short, right? The plot accelerates. I mean, pretty much immediately after this, Tom is going to figure out what's going on, and you're just going to have the most uncomfortable dinner party turned trip into the city ever, where on the hottest day of the summer, you have Tom and Gatsby and Nick and Jordan and Daisy all hanging out together, with Jordan and Nick being kind of a couple that they like kind of like each other. They're attracted to each other, but it's no big thing. Really wanting to leave and being forced to stay in this uncomfortable this uncomfortable trio that they end up getting dragged into New York and just having the worst time ever in a hotel. There's a wedding going on in the hotel room. And they're like going back and forth about random shit. Like I wrote down, this is the kind of thing that makes this book rule. And it's the wedding march is playing and they're saying, imagine marrying someone in this heat. And then Daisy said, I was married in the middle of June. Somebody fainted. Who was it? Biloxi, he answered. A man named Biloxi. Biloxi. And he made boxes. That's a fact. And he was from Biloxi, Tennessee. They carried him to my house because he lived 2 doors down from the church, and he stayed 3 weeks until Daddy told him he had to get out. The day after, Daddy died. After a moment, she added, as if she might have sounded irreverent, there wasn't any connection.
This book is extremely like, what do you like? It's like, what do you do when you're drunk with all your friends? You just start yelling about Biloxi. It is extremely like just hanging out kind of book.
Yeah, and then like fucking Nick is like, I think I knew that guy, and she was like, no, you knew his cousin probably. He gave me an aluminum putter, and then Tom is just like, great, you're fucking my wife, and just like screams at Gatsby, and it just all hell breaks loose. And that's honestly not inaccurate to like a drunk party with a lot of tension.
And Gatsby is like, yeah, I'm fucking your wife and it's awesome. Fuck you. And then she's like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself.
This moment is rough.
It's
horrible.
Horrible.
Moment in the hotel where Daisy is being told not just to say I don't love you to her husband, but to say I never loved you.
Right.
And Gatsby is not willing to have anything less.
Yeah, Gatsby is obsessed with this idea that like she never loved Tom, that she was always in love with him. And I think that's really like this is a guy that needs everything. This is a guy who will not let you be anything on your own.
And you have this showdown basically between Gatsby and Tom where they're flexing really these different types of masculinity, right? And Tom is this very like, he's a football player, like literally a football player from the age where they didn't have face masks. Just a beast of a man, also rich. Gatsby is this guy who at least puts on the airs of being super educated and having an Oxford education.
Wears a pink suit.
Mostly not true. Wears a pink suit, but is a different type of masculinity, the sort of oligarch. They're showing down. And Joshua, you said earlier that this book, and you talked about it some, but this book is dealing a lot with masculinity. And I thought this maybe would be a good moment for you to expound on that if you wanted to.
Absolutely, I do. There's so much to be said about the men in this book because there are a bunch of people in this book. There are a bunch of men in this book, but there are 3 men in this book, really. Everybody else is a moment. There are 2 women. There are 3 men. And one of the men is Nick, who kind of keeps saying, I'm just nothing. I'm a pH 7 of a person, which already makes him an unreliable narrator.
Right.
But
he self-describes as honest. That's a dangerous guy.
Yeah. No. So we right from the bat we have this like, well, I'm a normal guy, and here's the different type of guy I've met. And in those little vignettes of him like meeting people on the street or going to look at some photographs, we learn about the actual
guy with the owl eye glasses in the
Yes. Yeah, we learn about those tiny little glimpses into the fact that like, oh, Nick's a little fuck up too. Like Nick's a goofy little guy too. There's something going on there that needs to color all of this. And what Nick is a young man fresh out of school who does not know what it means to be a young man out of school. And he is desperately looking for guidance there. He has his shitty job. He has his bad apartment. He sees all of this wealth all around him and he goes, okay, one of these people must know what it is to be a good man, the kind of man one would want to be. I hear people talk about this great guy named Gatsby. That must be what a man is. Oh, but also I have this image of what classic masculinity is in my cousin-in-law or whatever. That is also a man. And it's him watching this clash of 2 different types of toxic and bad masculinity. One of them striving to carve out its own definition of what a man is in a new time. One of them desperately trying to hold on to I am what a man is all the time, and the things that are changing about that make me angry. And this war plays out in front of Nick, who is being pulled in both directions constantly by whoever he's in the room with. Like when he observes them as people, he always critiques them. And when he is with Nick, Gatsby looks a lot better. When he's with Gatsby, Nick looks a lot better. All he can see is the flaws in these people. And that is such an interesting thing in how young men encounter and interact with masculinity when they're trying to figure out what they are supposed to be. The easiest thing you can do is poke holes in somebody else. And that's what we see in the alt-right pipeline right now. There is no, here is why it is good to be a fascist. There is, here is why it's bad to be a liberal. It is so easy to do that. And this whole book is watching that happen to Nick without him realizing it's happening over and over again until one guy gets shot and the other guy is totally emasculated in the one thing that he truly values, his masculinity, and he sees him lose it. And Nick just says, you know what? I'm not going to find it here. I'm out. It's such an interesting book about having come of age as a man, then what?
I do think that his, like, I think the word that you could use is love. Like, his love for Gatsby is very touching because it's like, there's moments I think that he sees Gatsby as like a real person. And I think he's really the only person in the book who ever does. And
he's one of the only people at his funeral.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's him, his father, and a guy who was just like wandered in and wandered out.
Some nice guy,
like.
yeah. Some nice drunk man. And I do think that Nick, I think, has this affection for Gatsby, partly because I think he sees that it is very easy to become like Gatsby, not to become a gazillionaire, but to like become someone who is like so thoughtlessly devoted to something that like everything is just like taken from you. But anyway, like what happens is on the way home, Daisy is driving Gatsby's car. And
they're both very upset. Of course.
They're both very upset. And she hits a woman in the street, and it happens to be Tom's mistress. She doesn't do it on purpose.
Because Tom's mistress thinks, because earlier Tom claimed that was his car, right? Because it's such a nice car. She thinks it's Tom, wants to run out to talk to him. Daisy does not.
Daisy hits her.
Just plows into her.
Yeah. And then Gatsby
is
like
witnessed by her husband, who had only just recently realized he was getting cheated on.
Yeah. And he's like losing it. And the whole scene with them driving up afterwards, like Nick and Tom and Jordan, and like seeing the body and the husband, and it's like really harrowing. It is like a horrifying scene. And Tom like having to keep it together because nobody except Nick knows that like he was involved with this woman. It's really like, you don't really feel bad for Tom, but like he seems human for maybe a split second before he like sort of just like shuts it all down again.
Yeah, this book is smart enough to have that, right? Because Tom is spending most of the book being just completely the worst. I mean, Tom in an argument with Gatsby gets so mad about like Gatsby being with his wife that he decides to be like, what, next thing you'll know, we'll have interracial marriage. And Jordan says like the only line she said in 3 pages, which is, I think we're all white here. Which is like, and it's like that's how Tom is most of the time. But this book is smart enough to not just have him be a guy who is that all the time, because even a guy who is that will have moments of like insecurity and weakness that express themselves in different ways. And it's not an apology for him to like show him as a human being, because human beings are the ones who behave like this, not robots.
I think that what makes this book stand out for me from other books like it is that this book has such a deep well of empathy for human frailty in a way that I think so many books don't, especially modern books. And this is a modern book. Like, this is the modern era. It feels very modern in a way that other books that we read after, like On the Beach, to me, felt a lot older than this book.
Yes, despite being much more recent.
Yeah, like 20 years more recent. This feels like a very modern book. It feels like Josh said, it's a book about now. But it has so much, I think, empathy. Like I said, like empathy for human frailty.
And that's such a strength of, to throw this back to Kevin, the greatest satire of our time, to really point the finger at the people around you. They need to be people. And he does a great job at making even Tom people. Like you said that you can see how Zelda becomes Zelda, or not Zelda becomes Zelda, how Daisy becomes Daisy, but you can see how everyone becomes everyone. you can understand how Tom started spewing all of that. You get a very specific timeline of how Gats became Gatsby. These are all fully fleshed out human beings. None of them are caricatures, even though they are presented with exaggerated features. It's so remarkable.
Paradoxically, or maybe not paradoxically, because this is just how books work, but like the person that we feel that feels the least like a full person is Nick. And that's because we're in Nick's head. And the narrator does not tell you the truth about himself. He never does.
And I think Nick is still cooking. I think he's not a full person yet. And that's what the book is actually about.
Yeah, he's quite a bit younger than the rest of them.
He is. And if this book is about... If you can sum up the lesson that this book is trying to teach you with the statement, you will never be happy if you're trying to be happy, then this is a story about Nick learning that lesson and then going off to actually become a person. Nick is still in the oven, and he's stretching himself to understand what makes the great happy people great and happy. And what he finds is they're not. They're rich, and they're having as much fun as they can to hide from the fact that they are deeply unhappy.
Right, which is like one of the reasons like I really don't like the Baz Luhrmann movie. I think it's like not good. Because I think that this book, it's like weird because this book is about glitz and glamour, and but it always kind of hits me as odd when people are like, "Oh, a Great Gatsby party, ballroom, blah blah blah," because this is such a quiet book. Like most of this book is just very quiet to me. Like it is not a glitzy glam book. I mean, there are big parties in it.
There's really one big party. Every big party after the one big party sucks. There's one fun party, and everything else is such a downer.
Yeah, it's just like, I feel like this is just not a big, this is not a spectacle book. I think this is a thinky book.
The big parties are bait. The big parties are literally bait for Daisy. He's trying to get her to show up. He's trying to just get out his name. And the second that he's got her, the parties stop happening altogether.
Yeah.
They don't appear in the second half of the book because that's not what it's about. And Gatsby never liked his parties in the first place.
It's also very interesting to me that the people who do show up to his funeral are his staff.
Yeah.
So like the people who work for him really do seem to like him and have a lot of loyalty to him, which is, I think, reflects well on him.
Well, it's such a cool thing that he's not a bad guy. he just does being a guy bad.
Yeah.
He's also fixated on one thing. That's all he's been able to think about. He
fits in with people of his quote unquote class now better than the people he's trying to brush shoulders with. Well, yeah. So it's like it's when that like butler is like defending him and won't let Nick in and stuff, it's like you get the idea that like, oh, this guy's just his friend, like, and stuff like that. Which I thought was really interesting because it like felt genuine. Like it felt like these people actually do care about him and like feel loyalty to him.
That's such a big theme in the book too, is this is a book about class and about old money versus new money versus feigning at money. And like the pink suit wasn't necessarily about pink is for girls, because at the time it wasn't necessarily for girls. It was about pink is one of the new hip colors and we don't do that. Women didn't wear pink either. You wore gray, you wore blue, you wore black, you wore tan, and white in the summer, like Gatsby's whole thing was climbing the ladder, and he climbed the ladder and still didn't get the respect. And what a good
because his house sounds really tacky. Like it sounded like fucking Trump Tower. Like I'm gonna be real.
It's a golden toilet. It says he has a golden toilet.
Yeah. So the night that the crash happens, everybody sort of like splits up, and Nick goes with Gatsby because he's like, this is the only person here I can stand actually of this bunch. Even Jordan, his girlfriend, ostensibly, he's like, I don't want to be around you right now. And this is the part of the book that I think about. This might be kind of like a strong sentiment, but it's one of my favorite passages from any book. His house had never seemed so enormous to me as it did that night when we hunted through the great rooms for cigarettes. We pushed aside curtains that were like pavilions and felt over innumerable feet of dark wall for electric light switches. Once I tumbled with a sort of splash upon the keys of a ghostly piano. There was an inexplicable amount of dust everywhere, and the rooms were musty, as though they hadn't been aired for many days. I found the humidor on an unfamiliar table with 2 stale, dry cigarettes. Throwing open the French windows of the drawing room, we sat smoking out into the darkness. It's like such a perfect image. Like the image of falling with a sudden splash onto a piano that you didn't see there. It's like, I can't think of a better way to describe that. It's incredible. Like, my man really nobody does it like this.
Yeah.
And I mean, shortly after this, Gatsby is going to die, and we get he and Nick's last exchange, and I'll read it right here. He says they're starting away. They say goodbye. It's kind of an awkward moment. And then says, we shook hands and I started away. Just before I reached the hedge, I remembered something and turned around. They're a rotten crowd, I shouted across the lawn. You're worth the whole damn bunch put together. I've always been glad I said that. It was the only compliment I ever gave him because I disapproved of him from beginning to end. First, he nodded politely, and then his face broke into that radiant and understanding smile, as if we'd been in ecstatic cahoots on that fact all the time. His gorgeous pink rag of a suit made a bright spot of color against the white steps, and I thought of the night when I first came to his ancestral home 3 months before. The lawn and drive had been crowded with the faces of those who guessed at his corruption, and he had stood on those steps concealing his incorruptible dream as he waved them goodbye. I thanked him for his hospitality. We were always thanking him for that. I and the others. Goodbye, I called. I enjoyed breakfast, Gatsby. This is where we reach the end because the husband of the woman that died in the car accident, first goes and threatens Tom and gets pointed to Gatsby.
Yeah.
And he goes and kills Gatsby, and then he dies too. Presumably he shoots himself. And Gatsby is left dead in a swimming pool, much like we said Lenore was at the top of this episode, because we're doing literary references, folks. That's what we're doing here. And it's actually like very, I remembered it being a lot more cinematic and grand and whatever than it actually is. Like, because I haven't read this in a few years. And I remembered this being this huge scene. And actually, in reality, it's very much like, yeah, like we found his body dumped in the water. Mm-hmm. Like, it's very unceremonious, as much as it can be unceremonious with writing like this. And I think it's super effective.
Yeah.
It's fucking gnarly. And then like Nick is the only guy who's around. It's like him, the butlers, and they're finally able to get in touch with Gatsby's dad, but like who he's like left behind.
Right.
But there's nobody.
Nick is basically like in the place of like a widow, like to like arrange the funeral because there is nobody else. And it is really sad. And you can just like feel Nick's rage at these people who who just, used Gatsby and then don't have any time for him now that he's dead. And it is really like, I think a really good punctuation. Cause I know I'm like the person who's like, I don't like long falling actions, but I think this one is perfect. Like it's necessary. It's like the exclamation point on the book. Even like the gangster that he made a bunch of money with won't come.
Yeah. The anti-Semitic stereotype gangster.
Yeah.
There's just people aren't interested in coming. Gatsby is buried alone. He does not achieve his dream. Tom and Daisy, I mean, they retreat into their money. It literally says that. They don't seem to have a very good life, but they do stay together. And Nick breaks things off with Jordan, and he's like a little sad about it for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a fling. It was nothing, and that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, I'm already engaged to be married," and she's probably lying, which is also awesome. But he's like, "You know what? She might be. She's got tons of guys."
Jordan is so cool. I like to think Jordan might be a lesbian. That's like what Jordan is in my head. She plays golf. That's gay.
That's so gay.
That's pretty gay.
Yeah.
And we finally have this end.
We have him run into Tom. That has the most iconic line from the book. So he runs into Tom like months later. because Tom and Daisy just like vanished. They were like, Daisy did not call and did not come to the funeral. And like she had, just been about to leave her husband for this man. And like, he's dead and she doesn't care. And Nick guesses that Tom pointed the husband at Gatsby, even though Tom was the one who was sleeping with his wife. And then Nick says, I couldn't forgive him or like him, but I saw that what he had done was, to him, entirely justified. It was all very careless and confused. They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness, or whatever it was that kept them together, and let other people clean up the mess they had made. I shook hands with him. It seemed silly not to, for I felt suddenly as though I were talking to a child.
Everyone is 12.
Once again.
I love they were careless people. I think that's like such a good sum up of that kind of person. I know lots of people who I would describe as careless people.
As we move towards the end, a thing that has recurred a couple times in the book and is emphasized by the cover is the eyes of Dr. Eckelberg. It's a advertisement for a person who will give you glasses that's been abandoned on a billboard in just like a really shitty part of the city or outside the city with a bunch of ashes over it. And you can kind of see them in the distance, these eyes.
They're watching.
When he's in, and they come up a couple times. And when George Wilson, who is the guy who kills Gatsby, kind of having his full breakdown, he says, you can hide from me, but you can't hide from the eyes of God. And he points at those eyes, right? And I want to read what the very end of this book says. And then I want to tie it back to the eyes, even though it does not actually get mentioned in the last passage. So Nick is on the beach. He's by Gatsby's house, and he's reflecting on all that's happened. And as the moon rose higher, the inessential houses began to melt away until gradually I became aware of the old island here that flowered once for Dutch sailors' eyes, a fresh green breast of the new world. Its vanished trees, the trees that had made way for Gatsby's house, had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For a transitory, enchanted moment, man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent, compelled into an aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired, face to face for the last time in history with something commensurate to his capacity for wonder. And as I sat there brooding on the old unknown world, I thought of Gatsby's wonder when he first picked out the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. He had come a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close that he could hardly fail to grasp it. He did not know that it was already behind him, somewhere back in that vast obscurity beyond the city, where the dark fields of the Republic rolled on under the night. Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgiastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster, stretch out our arms further, and one fine morning. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. And I think
that's America, baby. Sorry.
Right, exactly. What this is hitting here is Nick has this moment where he sees what this island was. This island that has now got, that this area was. He sees where his shitty house is, where the mansions is, where the stretch of industrial wasteland with the eyes of Eckelberg are, where New York City is, where all the bonds and stock trading that's making so much money that will, in a few short years, even Fitzgerald does not know at the time, crash the entire world economy and plunge so many millions of people into destitution. And he sees what this was, and he sees what he basically sees as like the American people's last encounter with the divine, which was this continent. And he says it was a divinity they didn't understand, they didn't want to understand. And the green light that Gatsby saw was a lie. And the only God left is Eckelberg. The only
Yeah.
god left are the eyes of a billboard that has been forgotten about, that is looking over this land of mass accumulation, of chasing after something that you want, that you don't understand why you want it. You think you've got it. You think it's right within your grasp, and you're never going to properly hold it. And it's just people smashing together with the minds of
Right.
children. And the only way to stop it is to walk away from it, because it's actually a cycle that is inherently corrupted. And
Right.
at the end of the day, the only place that leads to is either dead in a fucking swimming pool, in the worst marriage you've ever imagined, or like Nick, you get in the car and go somewhere else. We don't know if he's going to do something better, but he's not here in this fucking cursed land anymore.
Also, what you said about the green light being fake, like it's false. Just like when the Dutch traders came here, what they saw was false too. Like
Yeah.
it was not a perfect, untouched, it was not a country without a land that was perfect, untouched place for you to, like it was a lie
build
too.
fucking billboards. Yeah,
Right,
no,
exactly.
yeah.
That was a lie.
You had to destroy something to do that. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the eyes to me always speak to when I read the Spark Notes, I had also recently read someone explaining the poem Ozymandias to me. And so those are like both stuck in my head as kind of the same thing. Like this is a monument to what used to be. And the eyes of God is such a like, they drive that home into you. You are being watched, but it's not just a pair of eyes. It's an old pair of eyes in a totally abandoned part of Long Island that used to have so much to it. And we see like that used to be glorious, just like these mansions someday will have used to have been glorious. And I think I disagree with what you said about Nick getting out, because he doesn't get out. He is also beating on like boats against the current, being whatever, pulled ceaselessly towards the past. I think he's just realizing that that's the only place you can ever go. You are going to be outpaced, and everything that you held is going to be lost, no matter how tight you hold it. So you just have to be okay with that. And those eyes are what happens when you can't move on. Nobody ever painted over that billboard because there was nothing there. They just stayed for too long, and now no one is ever gonna. We don't even know if the doctor is still a doctor, right? This is a relic from the past, just like, Gatsby is already a relic from the past. Tom has been a relic from the past the whole time, frantically trying to not be. All of these people are fighting to stay in a moment that has already passed them by. And if you can't float on that current and accept that you are being pulled backwards, you're just gonna drown. Yeah. So I think yeah, go ahead.
I think you are onto something there. And I guess I'll amend what I said. I think Nick is maybe the only one left with any potential. I think him acknowledging that, him not being in that same physical location, which represents sort of the decadence. But you're right. There is no guarantee that Nick is out of it. And Nick may just exist in the exact same place.
Which is the thing that I didn't like about the Baz Luhrmann movie, because we get Nick in like a rehab facility or an asylum or something of like, look how I was ruined by these people. And I don't think that's what happened. He's not ruined by these people. He grows by moving past where these people are.
And we can hope that he does something better. I think given his class standing, it's very likely that he goes back in the cycle. Certainly if he keeps bonds trading, he's on a bad path. I'll tell you that.
The book that I connect with this book is The Catcher in the Rye.
Oh,
and it's partly because I read it in the same class. Almost in the same unit, I think. Because they're also about somebody bumming around New York. And I actually think the end of The Catcher in the Rye is more hopeful than the end of this book is. Just because Holden is so young. And he and Holden does have The Catcher in the Rye was the first book I ever came on this show to talk about. And I think that Holden has I think he has a sense of himself that Nick doesn't, even at his age. Like how Holden is like, when somebody asks him like, what do you want? And he can kind of like describe what he wants. He wants to be the catcher in the rye. Like he does kind of have an idea of what he wants. And I don't think Nick could do that.
No, I mean, Holden has the leg up of being a child. and knowing that he is a child. Nick's greatest weakness is that he thinks he's got it figured out.
Yeah.
I mean,
the
he
difference
opens the
between
book.
being 16 and 23.
Right, he opens the book with a pearl of wisdom that his father told him. Like, what a dick. Are you kidding?
The pearl of wisdom, and then says, "And don't worry, I'm normal." He's going to be great. I should have to say, that Catcher in the Rye episode was 2 years and 4 months ago.
Oh my God. We're so old. That's
So much.
crazy.
That-
Really?
Still, yep, 2 years, early October of 2023.
That's fucked
Great,
up.
great name of an episode. We named it Neurodivergent in a Minor, and that really is. There really could be no better name for Catcher in the Rye.
Oh my God.
Well, that is Gatsby. It is a hell of a book. For
Very
all
short
its-
read. You can read it in a day.
You really and you can and you should, because it really is worth doing. And like Joshua identified, like, it is so prescient. And it's prescient for its own time in ways that Fitzgerald wouldn't have known, with the coming cliff all of this was going to fall off. Very specifically, Nick was a bonds trader, right? It's crazy that this is written in
I had
1925.
never connected that dot until you said that thing about, like, it's bad if he stays in bonds. Like, Nick's life is going to be ruined soon.
Yeah.
Nick's going to be in a breadline.
And I mean,
Yeah.
like, the people who were bonds traders, like, famously were jumping out of windows in, like, Wall Street. Like, that's not an urban legend.
I'm
They
glad
were
Nick
doing
went
that.
back to the Midwest.
Right.
He could be a farmer.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to deal with the Dust Bowl, but, they'll
Yeah.
get some federal relief.
Yeah.
So that's so
Has
it's
the New
prescient for its
Deal to
own
look
time.
forward to. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's prescient for our own time. And all we can hope for is to identify,
Destroy capitalism.
Well, yeah, identify these systems and realize that, like, there is a way past Eckelberg, but we can't fucking just exist in the same world and hope to have the same outcomes. And we have to actually examine ourselves and not, like, be fucking 12. Like, there's no better way to put it. Don't be a 12-year-old, or at least not when you're engaging in, like, economic and political life. If you want to be a 12-year-old while you're playing video games, that's fine.
You can be a 12-year-old until you're 15, and after that, you got to cut it out.
Yes. Yeah, Nick turns 30 in the middle of this book. I do like that it's his birthday. He's, like, having the worst day of all time. And he goes, "I just remembered it's my birthday."
Oh, is he really turning 30? I thought he was younger than that.
Yeah, he turns 30 in the middle of this book.
Okay.
He feels younger, though. He does feel younger.
Yeah, he feels like a guy in his early 20s to me.
Yeah.
But I think it was written. Yeah, I guess he is just F. Scott Fitzgerald age 29.
Well, if he's just a Scott Fitzgerald, he's not going to have a very good life. I guess the prediction about him maybe having potential is wrong if that's the path he's on. But the last thing I wanted to say too is just I don't know. It's, if people don't appreciate your art, I guess F. Scott Fitzgerald is also a good message of, like, it's still good to make it, and maybe it'll mean something to someone. I think that's also, like, meaningful and cool.
Just don't drink yourself to death.
Yeah, there's no
Try
reason
not
to do that.
Yeah.
Bad thing to do.
There's so many better ways to blank yourself to death now.
Yeah, for real.
There could be so many. There's so many ways to do it.
Don't drink. Post
God,
yourself to
don't
death.
do that either. Oof.
Well, Josh, tell us where people can find you and give us your plugs one more time here.
Do not look for me. I cannot be found.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I live in Maine. I guess I said that earlier.
You can look for me in Maine.
If you go poking around Maine, you will eventually find a moose, and ask that moose where to find me. And
You are the first guest who I've said, "Where can I find you?" And you've talked about a physical location.
like about 3 to 2.5 degrees south of the prime meridian, like on the prime meridian, 2.5 degrees south of, like, the 45th parallel.
Yeah, you go to the Prime Meridian, you just go a little bit south, you'll find me.
Yeah,
Don't
there
worry
I
about it.
am. But you can hear me in Thirst, which is available wherever you get your podcasts, every other Thursday, or for special edition subscribers, every other Sunday.
I need to catch up.
Yeah, we're like
Every other thirst day.
every other Thirst day. Thank you. Exactly. We're about halfway through season 1. It is so much fun to listen to. It's so much fun to do. I hope everyone who is listening right now who has not heard it yet stops the podcast, doesn't listen to the outro, pauses the podcast, actually, save it, go listen to all of Thirst, which I think we've just got like 13 episodes in, and then come back and finish this episode.
So, do you still call fans travelers, or are they thirsters now?
I don't know. That's a good question. But it is above my pay grade.
I'll have to ask Kevin.
The link to that will be in the episode description. If you don't have time to listen to it right now, at least click on it and subscribe on whatever podcast app you're using so it will pop up. You really do not want to miss this. It's some really unique, really interesting, really insightful stuff. So we really appreciate you coming on and
listen to All My Maidens.
Yes, yeah. You
listen
should.
to All My Maidens, which is my other show about Elden Ring. Play Pathologic 3, because it just came out, and it fucking rips.
Yes.
If you like to feel bad, check it out. Because it is... It is also a game that is about right now, I will say, even though it takes place in an ambiguous... Also takes place in the 1920s, I think, or post World War I, in somewhere in the Russian steppe, and it's also very prescient, I think.
Absolutely. Well, folks, there was something said earlier about the 1920s being a lot like right now that I wanted to close this on, that I thought of, and it's this. A lot of figures in literature, in film, and video games that really shouldn't be have been adopted by the sort of annoying internet alpha male types as like their guy. And I'm just like, what if Gatsby is the next one? I think that's a good idea. I think we need guys to be posting, I'm Gatsby maxing. They need to be staring at green lights. They need to be sipping a drink remorsefully. They need to be throwing pink suits. I'm just saying, if we're going to have annoying like alpha sigma male guys, they should be wearing pink suits. I really think that.
Should be drinking sidecars.
Yes, you should be.
Yeah.
I was going to say you should be speeding. Don't do that.
Yeah. Don't kill anybody with your car. Yeah.
Wear a pink suit. Sip a drink and
pine after a kid you knew 10 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Y'all have a good one. Peace. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, goodbye.
Bye, guys.